All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Monday night to be with us here tonight. It's my honor to call to order the Monday, October 28, 2024 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand if you can, please. On this day, in 1886, the Statue of Liberty was dedicated by President Cleveland. Emma Lazarus famously wrote in the New Colossus, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." We are indeed a nation of immigrants, a nation of others, those who left persecution or sought opportunity, and those who came against their will. Our complexion as a country is as complex as our history. Our differences are the source of our strength, but at times the fuel for exploitation. Who are the others? The liberal, the conservative, the immigrant, the homosexual, the religious, the atheist, the professor, the farmhand, the woman, the man, the black person, the rich, the poor, the Dutch, me, the son of people who immigrated to America in search of something better. It seems we are more divided than ever before, and it's human nature to blame others for our shortcomings. Throughout history, we have seen this to be true, and the outcomes to be dreadful. The truth is that we alone are to blame. In today's democracy, those in charge do not represent the people, they reflect the people. Until we set aside our grievances and confront our insecurities, chaos will consume everything we cherish most. We are at a crossroads. The election a week from tomorrow is the most consequential and contentious of our lifetime. Let us elect leaders who will lead, not pander or appeal to the most primitive fears. Let us not vote on superficial policy, rather for the people who share the values that unite us. Let us elect people who embody the truth, even when it's difficult to hear. Let us vote with each other in mind, and for our country was not built on the sum of individual efforts, rather the collective sacrifices made by many for the common good. Let us elect those who bring the best out of us, not the worst, because we, collectively, will determine the future of our country. We ask for the safe return home every day for all those who serve our city, both in uniform and not. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is the introduction of Mental Health Co-Responders Program. I see Chief Moore is here.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm excited to announce and introduce a program this evening that we've been working on for a very long time. And we've partnered with Oakland Community Health Network and the cities of Madison Heights, Ferndale, and Hazel Park. And this partnership is going to bring mental health clinicians into the field with our police officers and co-respond with us to calls for service. I truly believe this is something that law enforcement has needed for a very long time, and I'm really excited to deliver this to the community at long last. Alongside me this evening is Tricia Zizumbo. She's the Chief Operating Officer of Oakland Community Health Network. Beyond being the COO, she truly is the subject matter expert on the co-response model, and she's been doing it for quite some time. So I'm actually very excited that she's here tonight to really talk about what the program is, and then she's going to introduce one of our co-responders that's with us tonight. So Tricia, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chief. All right, good evening. As Chief said, my name is Tricia Zizumbo. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Oakland Community Health Network. If you are unfamiliar with who we are, OCHN is the public behavioral health system. We're your community mental health authority here in Oakland County. We serve approximately 29,000 people annually, and we offer mental health, substance use disorder, intellectual and developmental disability services. And you can think of us as the safety net for some of our most vulnerable people here in the community. So really excited to announce this partnership with the 4 communities here. And this is really thanks to $1 million in ARPA funding that we got from our Board of Commissioners so that we were able to expand this program. So the co-responder initiative embeds licensed clinician with our local law enforcement. They co-respond to calls identified or that require a mental health or substance use related support. They provide crisis de-escalation, stabilization for adults, youth. They connect them to supports and services, both within the OCHN network and those who maybe have private insurance and other needs as well. So our CORE, as we call it, our co-responder initiative, is part of OCHN's Justice Department. We are really fortunate to be one of the only community mental health authorities in our state that has an entire department dedicated to the justice system and every place that we intersect with that justice system, from we call our Intercept Zero community with our law enforcement, all the way through our treatment courts, our prosecutor's office, our jail, probation, parole, and reentry. So we offer a wide variety of prevention and intervention services that do support the needs of people prior to arrest, during arrest, pre-arraignment, jail, and then thereafter. So we officially launched our co-responder program in August of 2021. We had just 1 co-responder in 3 communities, and I'm really pleased to announce that we are on our 8th co-responder in 15 communities in Oakland County. So I had to bring some notes because it's hard to remember all 15, but we have 2 co-responders in Auburn Hills, Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Rochester. We have 1 with the Sheriff's Office in Pontiac, soon to be 2. We have 1 in Troy, we have 1 in Waterford, and we have added Sabrina and Alyssa here in Ferndale, Hazel Park, Madison Heights, and Royal Oak. And soon we will be expanding to Walled Lake, Wixom, White Lake, Wolverine Lake, as well as the additional 1 in Pontiac and with the Oakland County Sheriff's Crisis Response Unit. So we are expanding quickly. And again, some of that is thanks to ARPA funding. So since the program started in 2021, we've had more than 4,500 referrals. So our co-responders will respond on scene in real time with our officers, but we know that they can't be there 24/7 the way that our officers can. So they receive referrals from the officers. So for instance, if I'm the co-responder and I interact with Sabrina and I don't have my co-responder on duty, I can fill out a referral form and that co-responder will follow up with that individual afterwards. They will reach out, they will connect with them to provide resources, supports, and services. So we've had more than 4,500 referrals from law enforcement. Of those numbers, about 22% were voluntarily transported to our crisis center. I'll also mention that we're really lucky in our community that we have a 24/7 crisis center. We have our resource and crisis center in Pontiac that house our adult crisis provider, which is Common Ground, and our youth crisis provider, which is New Oakland Families. About 49% of those people were able to remain in their community with supports and services, and only about 3% resulted in arrest. So here in Royal Oak, you have a co-responder 7 days of the week. So we have 2, they overlap on Tuesdays, and they are on shift on 410s from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we chose those hours specifically based on call data from the departments. So we revisit that every 6 to 12 months to ensure that those times still coincide with what the needs of the community are. So some data that we have. So We also have a very long onboarding process. I believe strongly in training. Prior to becoming COO, I was our Director of Justice and our Director of Training. And so they have about an 8-week onboarding. So this includes 40 hours of ride-along with an existing co-responder, 40 hours of ride-along with our law enforcement, required trainings by mental health, but also additional trainings in de-escalation, CIT, ASSIST, which is Applied Suicide Intervention Strategies, and more. So our co-responders here were able to begin responding about the beginning of September. And so this data is, I believe, current as of last week, is we've had 167 referrals for all 4 officers. Royal Oak is 47% of that, with 79 referrals. And again, our data is still going with kind of overall. We're seeing about 45% remaining in the community. We've had about 39% overall that have been petitioned for mental health services, but only resulting in about 3 to 4% of arrests. And we're seeing that some really good data outcomes from these co-responders. We've partnered with Wayne State to do some evaluation over a section of a few years in our initial communities. And we're seeing when a co-responder is on scene with an officer, use of force, which includes handcuffs, has dropped tremendously. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but we are seeing that, and we're seeing that with all of our communities as well. So that is a little bit about what I wanted to share overall with you, but I do want to introduce you to Sabrina, who is one of your co-responders.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Filoni. I am one of your 2 co-responders. My partner couldn't be here tonight, Alyssa Waters, because she's in Madison Heights at their city council meeting, but I think I speak for the both of us when I say we are very, very excited to be a part of this program, and it has been wonderful so far. We've seen an amazing turnout and very welcomed by all of the officers, which has been fantastic. Just a little bit about me. I come from a criminal justice social work background, so I've been able to use a lot of those things that I've learned in the past out there in the community. As far as success stories, we have seen a lot of success out there. I think speaking from the most recent, I've seen a lot of success with just being able to be on scene and offer alternatives to not only the officers, but also the people who we attend to in the community. We had an individual that we were running into quite frequently a few weeks back, and I was able to get on scene at some point and offer them resources and directly link them to rehabilitation services, and that individual is now in rehab, and I've been following up with them, and they are doing fantastic. So I think I speak for all of us when I say we are very, very excited to be a part of this program, and we are very happy to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the time. I don't know if you have questions for Tricia or Sabrina, or that we threw a lot at you, so if not.
Commissioner Macy?
Love everything about this. I have a math question. So if we're sharing 2 people with 4 communities, how do we have them 7 days a week?
So they're available 7 days a
Okay.
week, meaning that they might be in Madison Heights or Hazel Park, and then they can come over. So each of our co-responders for these 4 communities are in their own vehicles. So they are arriving on scene with officers, but separate from officers. We have some other, in other communities, they might do it a little bit different, but they're able to be available those days. So they might be on a scene in Royal Oak, and then an hour or 2 later be on scene in Ferndale, and then Madison Heights, and covering the 4 communities. So
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cola?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Echoing, Commissioner Macy, I mean, this is a phenomenal program. Thank you for doing this. The stats you're sharing tonight, I mean, this is amazing that only 3% of the individuals end up needing to be arrested for every reason. It's showing that this community policing strategy is working, so thank you. I heard you said that this was initially funded through the ARPA grant as administered. I know Commissioner Woodward worked on this at the county commission level, so we're always thankful to him and the county commission. Does that $1 million, was that the startup cost, and now ongoing, I believe the city commission is funding some also, so this is a program that's going to be here to stay?
Yes, so the $1 million was for us to increase up to 5 co-responders across the community, and it funds 12 months of funding for communities to start them up. And part of accepting that funds was within our contract with the city, was to sustain those positions. So the 4 communities share in that cost of the 2 co-responders.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Commissioner Cheatham?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, and I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Zimba. We have emailed in my other job, so it's nice to meet you in person. I know that I think we're all really well aware that there is a mental health crisis, not just in our community, but in all communities. And I've often been troubled with the idea that people get put into the justice system because of mental illness or substance use issues. And so I'm just really glad that we can have this program and sharing it with our neighboring communities to support our residents or people visiting our community to help them get the help that they need. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and welcome to the team. All right, thank you.
Absolutely. I will also add, we've been partnering with WROK for probably the past 3 years now, not just in talking about co-responders, but also in crisis intervention team training for the officers. And there's a significant portion of Royal Oak officers that have been trained, are now actual trainers with us as well. So I think as a community, it's really important to see that commitment to mental health, especially through, the law enforcement partnership, so.
And this has to be an excellent investment because the cost of incarcerating people, especially when you're incarcerating people only because they're mentally ill, not because they're criminals, is extraordinary. We're in a crisis situation in our prison and jail system today. So this is a financial win without a doubt for our city and our other participants.
Absolutely.
And what I'll just add to that point is we are beyond excited to have these social workers go out into the field with us, because the reality is when people are in crisis, they call the police. And unfortunately, we just don't have all the answers all the time. So we try to come up with a temporary solution that's a best fit for the time. And now we have a direct access to resources, placement, follow-up. That follow-on care is unbelievable. So yeah, a lot of times we get called to situations that are not law enforcement experiences or incidents, and now we can bring along some expertise that if somebody's in mental health crisis, they probably don't need to go to jail or something like that. So we are really excited for this program.
I would say, Tricia Sabrina, welcome, an enthusiastic welcome, might I say. And this is something that was first brought to our attention. We were so hopeful for, and we were so remiss that it should have happened a long time ago. And I think the work that you're doing already early on will hopefully start to change some hearts and minds and paradigms of what it means in terms of what public safety means and how it's delivered and what community health means. So the work you're doing is very, very, very important. The cooperation with our police department is very, very important. And I think everybody's going to learn something out of this, and hopefully the public will learn a lot from this. And I think this is one of the biggest stories about how communities can work for their people. And I'm just so eager to learn more stories about the interventions that you do in the lives that are going to be changed for the positive because of it. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Item 5 is a pretty important agenda item. It's the recognition of City Clerk Melanie Hallis. And for those of you who don't know City Clerk Melanie Hallis, all you have to know is that in the opinion of most people that run into her, she is not only one of the best people you'll ever meet, she is also the #1 clerk in the state of Michigan, probably in the US of A. And I mean that with all sincerity, because I've seen her firsthand in action. We've all seen her firsthand doing the job that she loves to do, that she's passionate to do. And so tonight we'd like to take a moment to recognize our city clerk, Melanie Hallis, on a remarkable achievement. Melanie has earned her Level 3 Michigan Professional Municipal Clerk certification from the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks. As MAMC President Melanie Riska said, Melanie's commitment to education and her dedication to maintaining certification clearly shows her commitment to both her profession and the community she serves. and we're so proud to have her on our team. An honor to publicly recognize her for her accomplishment tonight. It's not an easy task. And I'll just tell you, at every turn, every election, at every moment, our clerk is always looking for ways to improve the service to voters, making everything more streamlined, making sure we have the state-of-the-art equipment that we need. She's often used by the county clerk as a reference point to bounce ideas off of. She is an example of how one individual can make a tremendous amount of positive impact, not just in our city, but in our county and our state. And Clerk Hallis, we're just so proud of you for this accomplishment, but for everything that you do for the citizens of Royal Oak. Thank you. Let's give it a And I can tell you, on Sunday, my wife and I went to the M&M Center to vote, and Clerk Hallis is there. She's moving around. She's just, full of energy, processing a lot of early votes, which is, very exciting and encouraging. And I think her and her team that she leads, fantastic job. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 6, which is the approval of the agenda. I think there was something we wanted to add to the agenda to remind whoever is the motion maker. Commissioner Macy?
Yes, I'll move approval of the agenda with the addition of an item, acceptance of the recommendation of council from closed session, and authorizing mayor to act on behalf of the commission.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Chisholm. Discussion on the agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed, motion passes. All right, we've established an agenda. Now it's time for public comment. Just a few ground rules before we commence. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to help make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related topic, whether or not it's on the agenda. I ask that comments be directed to the commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight at public comment, please wait until recognized by me, the mayor, and come up to the podium. For the record, we ask that you state your name and address. Please be mindful that the City Commission wishes to hear from anyone who wants to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, not per topic, and we have a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. Please note the City Commission will not respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes, and when that topic is up for discussion, we will ask those questions. If your questions aren't related to anything on tonight's agenda, we are taking notes, and staff will look into it as appropriate. However, if you need an answer, it's not a rhetorical question. If it's a real question, we have our outstanding, wonderful community engagement specialist, Judy Davids, back there that can take your information and get you the answer you need and get right back at you. So with that, who's first tonight? I'm going to call on the B-teens, actually, because I forgot to say we're here. We have celebrities in front of us here tonight. And I'm going to ask the B-teens come up if they're willing to come up and do a presentation.
Good evening and thank you for having us. We are here today representing the B-Teens and would like to advocate for a new way to help out the pollinators. In the past, we have asked those interested in helping to participate in No Mow May, and this fall we recommend leaving the leaves.
How can leaving the leaves help pollinators? Though leaves may seem unimportant, they can serve as a great habitat. Leaves can work to insulate pollinators and other wildlife during our harsh winters. For instance, many ground nesting bees benefit from the insulation, as well as butterflies whose eggs can be protected by the leaves.
Additionally, leaving the leaves has benefits to your garden. For one, all of the leaves can work to feed microorganisms that exist in your lawn. By increasing the food for microorganisms, the larger population will be able to create healthier soil. Also, you don't have to leave the leaves exactly where they fall. Work them into garden beds, around tree bases, and other designated areas.
Finally, we invite everyone to spread the word about this initiative. Share your experiences, post photos, and inspire your friends and neighbors to join in. Together, we can create a supportive environment for our pollinators while enhancing the health of our gardens. For more beneficial information, some great resources include the U.S. Department of Agriculture or the National Wildlife Federation. So let's embrace the idea of leaving the leaves this fall. Not only will you be helping our vital pollinators, but you'll also be investing in the long-term health of your garden. Thank you for considering this simple yet impactful way to support our environment.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Leave it to the B teams to teach us something new. Every time you're up here, I learn something new. Sometimes I feel like I've Googled everything on the internet, but nope. The B teams have taught me something new. Sharks in the Great Lakes, microbes on asteroids, and now learning about how leaves can help our pollinators. Amazing.
We're falling behind here.
Well, no, thank you very much. I think another great program. Sorry. These dad joke guys get a little. Do we have any questions for the B team? No? Okay. Well, thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for educating the city of Royal Oak and everybody listening tonight about what we can do this fall to help our pollinators. Thank you. All right. Who wants to follow the B teams? Mr. Harrison. I'm sure it'll be just as positive and...
It's a tough act to follow.
I know. You're brave, sir.
I'd like to echo your comments about Melanie Hallis. I've known her for many, many years, and always known her to be, forthright. And any problems I've got with the county and the disenfranchisement of voters in the 2023 does not reflect on Melanie. I've mentioned that before. So anyway, getting down to it, the golf course management agreement will be for 2 years with a mutual extension option for an additional 2 years. The master plan future land use space map designation for the area is other open space. The golf course should be given the designation of either golf course or park. I'm concerned that other open space is a nebulous term that does not provide any protection to prevent the golf course from being sold for development. I'm not sure what kind of development would be appropriate for the golf course since the property is a former landfill. Former landfills are typically developed as parks and golf courses. Switching topics here, it's been at least 3 years since I asked why there is not a historical marker for the Hamer family like the one for the Starr family. These two families were intrinsically connected to the early Royal Oak history. You have since developed a very nice park commemorating the Hamer family, but there is still no historical marker to document the significance of these early pioneers. So I ask why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Anybody else wish to speak tonight at public comment? Yes, sir.
Mark Stowers with the Royal Oak Leprechauns. I do live in Royal Oak since 95 at 1933 Wakeham Street, straight up Crooks. Here representing the Royal Oak Leprechauns, we had our first inaugural patio dinger Halloween stroll at Memorial Park. Had about 200 kids show up. Our engagement manager was there. She told me I wasn't able to go there. I was working that night. We had about 200 kids. The police were also there. We had about a dozen of our partners giving out candy. So the weatherman was nice to us. It was a great event, and we hope to have another one next year and try to have a few more events that we sponsor there. The second item, we're very much looking forward to the park improvements coming this season, especially the new backstop that will significantly lower the city's liability there. Hopefully once all the bids are sorted and the lowest and best bid is accepted, that'll be within the money that's already been budgeted and set aside, the $200,000. And it's going to be great for field number 3. That one improvement will increase fan and player safety with a state-of-the-art netting system that allows for a clearer view of the game while protecting fans and those driving on Coolidge from foul balls and errant bats. And we very much appreciate Royal Oak investing in its premier park, Memorial Park, the Lucky Corner, home of your Royal Oak Leprechauns. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and always at royaloakleprechauns.com. Hope to see everybody there next season. We're already selling tickets, and everybody here is invited. Come on out to Memorial Park anytime. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, in the back.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Melissa Donu. I'm a Royal Oak resident since 2010. I live at 619 Mount Vernon Boulevard. I wasn't able to speak a couple weeks back, so I wanted to share my opinions about the petition to pave our part of Mount Vernon from Custer to the dead end. We bought our home in 2022 largely because we love the street, and there's a very different feel in it that it compares to, we used to live on 13 Mile, which is a very busy road. We love Mount Vernon. It's a tree-lined street with little traffic, and there's a park right at the end of our block, the senior center where my daughter Claire plays. I would ask the commission to please use common sense when voting on this petition request on November 11th. Does it make sense to move forward with this petition request at all when less than half, just 46% of the property owners it would impact want it? No, it doesn't. Does it make sense to pave just one part of this dirt road but leave other blocks alone? No, it does not. Does it make sense to spend nearly $900,000, including some $580,000 from city funds and presumably from other taxpayers, to pave such a small part of the road, which dead ends? No, it doesn't. Does it make sense to cut down 9 beautiful and mature trees that provide a wonderful tree canopy, including 3 we look at daily from our front window? No, it doesn't, and it's hardly a city necessity. 2 of those big trees are in my neighbor Alice Brown's front yard. She's the same homeowner who's spoken a few times, who would also have to pay nearly $30,000 for this project, and she never drives on this road. Does it make sense to force more than half of the property owners in this little section of Mount Vernon to pay for a project less than the majority want? No, it does not. There are several retired senior citizens this would impact, and for my family, it doesn't make sense for my husband and I to have to pay nearly $13,000 on this project when we have a son in college for the next 4 years and with high tuition bills. No, it doesn't. Thank you. My daughter wanted to read something too, and her name is Claire Donu, same address.
If you cut down these trees, animals won't have their homes anymore, and they will have to find new homes, and they will be sad. And I will also be sad for those poor animals. Also, I learned how to climb a tree a while ago, and it's pretty fun, and I'll probably learn how to climb other trees, but you're going to cut them down, so I won't be able to learn how to climb them. Also, in fall, that's when the trees are beautiful and colorful, and they give us oxygen and give us air to breathe. But if you cut them down, we'll have less oxygen and air to breathe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Claire. All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Treva Formby. I've Royal Oak resident since '91, and wow, that's a lot of years. And I live on Blair Avenue, and I'm here to speak in support of the Leave the Leaves campaign. So the information that I'm presenting here is from the Xerces Society website, and it's a society that protects pollinators. So it says leaves, plants, stems, and flower heads might not be growing anymore, but they aren't trash. They are natural homes for wildlife. A layer of leaves is vital insulation from the cold for the many animals that hide within or in the soil beneath, like quite a few butterflies and bees. Others, like many native bees, nest within stems, flower heads, or pieces of wood. Throwing out all your leaves and other plant material isn't just taking away options for shelter. There's a good chance you'll be tossing out many animals that have already settled in. That's why this year and every year, it's good to leave the leaves. That's not to say that you can't do any tidying up in your yard. You can. You can still do your autumn cleanup and leave space for nature. Leave the leaves or move them just a little bit. You can rake them into your garden beds or flower beds around the tree bases or other designated areas. They'll decay and enrich your soil quality. Avoid shredding the leaves. Let the bugs do that for you. Shredded leaves will not provide the same cover as leaving them whole, and you may be destroying eggs, caterpillars, and cocoons along with the leaves. So instead of a mower, use a rake or a blower to keep the leaves intact. Turn those fallen branches into logs and logs into a brush pile habitat so you can bundle your sticks, and insects will hibernate in there over the winter. You can leave the soil and sleeping bees undisturbed. Try to disturb your soil as little as possible if you're planting something or moving perennials, just to keep bee nests intact. Over 70% of all bee species nest in the ground. Wait until spring is underway to trim your stems and clean up. Instead of cutting back everything at the end of summer, leave the stems of perennial plants. The seed heads will feed goldfinches and other birds, and the stems will provide shelter for many insects that nest in them. And the idea is to leave the leaves permanently, and most of the leaves will decay and disappear over the winter, so you won't have to remove them ever. If you do decide you need to remove any leaves that are left over next spring, make sure you wait to clean up the garden until late in the spring so as not to destroy all the butterflies and bees you've worked to protect. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, in the back.
Hey, good evening, Commission members. My name is Chris Ott. I live at 1305 Ann, which is adjacent to Lawson Park, and I'm here in support of item number 10, which is coming up later on your agendas, which is the pull-off parking idea for Lawson Park. Before I start, I wanted to thank Engineer Donahue and Director Filipski for not only incorporating us into the June meeting at the Parks and Rec Board, but also taking this item here tonight. It took them a long time to get it here, but we really appreciate their support all summer. I did appreciate our conversation, Commissioner Herzog, after that meeting. Obviously, appreciate your support of this idea as well. We think the idea is a home run, and I hope that we can incorporate it in the future at some point because it's an extremely popular park. I know Mayor Fournier, I see you walking down Irving every once in a while, and I know you recognize that the parking can become a problem on Parent Avenue there. We think this idea aligns with the strategic plan well. It provides direct access for strollers and parents who want to access the swing and the amazing play set, which is huge and awesome to watch, and also the mezzanine, which can be rented out, so people can then access the mezzanine easily via that parking. We would ask that if this idea can't be completed in 2025 due to budgetary reasons, that it can be completed in 2026 as a package deal. So the East Parent Avenue paving improvement paired together with the pull-off parking idea, which we understand right now in the current estimation is about a $65,000 cost to the city that they don't have a funding source for. So again, keep it short and sweet. Appreciate everyone's time, and hopefully this idea can move forward at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ott. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Hall, and I live at 1222 Longfellow Avenue, which is actually the northeast residence on Longfellow and Parent Avenue. I am also here to support the pull-off parking option or initiative for Lawson Park. We love the park. My wife and I have 2 kids. We moved to our residence in December 2019, actually when the park was much smaller, and it was just literally to have our kids play there every single day, which we did, and we still do. So we love it. We love seeing people go there. It's an amazing place to live. Also, when this option was brought, when the park was being redesigned and parking was kind of discussed before, we didn't live in this residence. We weren't part of that conversation. So we're happy to participate in this process now. Lawson Park, as everybody knows, like many in Royal Oak, it's a destination. It brings families from our own and other communities, which we fully embrace. It's really fun, especially for us, to look out at the park and see neighbors or classmates of our kids and say hi out of our window and go over if we have time to play with them. With that increased park use, there's been numerous times where it's proved pretty difficult to navigate in and out of our residence. My driveway, as well as a neighbor of my driveway, is accessed through Parent Avenue. So we're two residences. You have to actually drive down Parent to get into our driveway and into our garages. I did send a document to the City Commission. I hope you received it. If not, I'm happy to send it to Ms. Hallis or anybody else who didn't receive it. It was just some examples I've been documenting over time where people are parked either facing the other direction or perpendicular. People just, they're just trying their best, I think, with trying to park to get access to the park. So those are just some documents or documentation that I've been kind of taking over the course of our residency there. And again, even if it's not in the budget for this next year, I fully support whenever we can get that included with the paving project and the parking initiative to move forward. We fully support that. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I live behind Greg. I live at 1223 Irving Avenue. My name is Bill Gobro. I support everything that Greg and Chris have just talked about, other than two small children. Ours are grown up. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight at public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robert Danu. I live at 619 Mount Vernon Boulevard. I just wanted to comment on the co-responder program that's being implemented here. I work for a community in Wayne County and learned about some communities there that have a co-responder program, and it's new to me and very excited to hear that my own community is implementing that. I think that's a good choice. I think that'll be very helpful. Give a lot of alternatives, as you're already aware, for law enforcement. So nice move. I think that's a really good job. My other topic tonight is the paving discussion for Mount Vernon Boulevard, the western block at the dead end. I've spoken before. I'm not in support of this project. I think it is a poor choice of community dollars, especially when less than half the neighborhood is interested in such a project. We have a nice tree-lined street, a nice calm neighborhood, and I believe several of you have spoken about being able to visit that neighborhood, and I would very much be disappointed to see that atmosphere disturbed. One thing I wanted to suggest, I don't know the feasibility at this point, but maybe what would be less impact than a full road grading and disintegration of roots and such. Maybe an asphalt pavement may be an alternative. I don't know what the impact of that is or how much foundation may be needed, but I think that might be somewhat of a compromise that I would be interested in, or just to learn about the feasibility, or not of that. But again, I think our dollars could be used better and for a project that has much more support from the citizens of the street, the community, and maybe other folks in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Wagman.
Janice Wagman. Seniors were just advised their Social Security is only going up by 2.5% next year. Meanwhile, our Medicare costs are increasing by approximately $120 a year, and inflation has taken a huge bite of our fixed income. Looking at my budget, including property taxes, I have to make choices between needs and wants. The state of Michigan recently announced our taxable values are increasing by 3.1%. after back-to-back increases of 5% the 2 previous years. Since 2021, we have passed millage increases and new millages of almost 1.5 mills. At the Commission's budget meeting, it was very clear that despite $28 million in ARPA funds, you need to cut costs as much as $3 million this year alone or find additional revenue. In other words, increase our taxes. These facts, plus the fact that our new city manager is coming from a town where there's a 4+ increase in millage on the ballot next month, I'm very concerned. I'm asking you to examine the ARPA fund accounting and rethink where they can be used to alleviate the general fund shortfall given ARPA restrictions. I know there's restrictions. Is there still over $1 million remaining in ARPA funds? The last accounting posted on the city's website was from December 31st of last year. What is happening with the $1.5 million designated for the YMCA? They're supposed to be reporting back. What is happening with the animal shelter? Is it still going to cost $2 million with a substantial portion coming from ARPA, or has it been downsized? Is there a deadline to spend those federal funds? No one's been able to tell me. I would hate to see us lose those funds if there is a deadline. Are we still proceeding with spending $1 million for bathrooms over at Farmers Market? If these projects are not going forward or being downsized, can those funds be used for some of the items on the CIP designated to be financed solely or partially by the general fund, such as the 4 water main infrastructure improvements totaling $4 million that is currently unfunded? The Salter Center's badly needed new roof with solar panels. The parking lot at Lawson Park on tonight's agenda, if you approve it. ADA accessibility improvements in the downtown, including Memorial Park that was mentioned tonight. So, in other words, where can you allocate the money on allowable infrastructure needs, not wants, to avoid increasing our taxes? Where can you make the same choices we are forced to make between needs and wants? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Bob Stuklin, 4404 Rochester Road. Listening to about bees and birds and trees and little girls talking about saving squirrels put me in a generous mood. So, Mr. Mayor, I really need to commend you on your invocation tonight. Listening in this day and age, those beautiful words by Emma Lazarus are meaningful and timely and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stuhlman. Anyone else wish to speak tonight? Going once? Going twice? All right, we're going to close closed session and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. Did I say closed session? We've had too many closed sessions, City Attorney. We're going to close public comment and bring the discussion back to this side of the table. All right. That brings us to the consent agenda this evening. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda? Commissioner Chisholm?
Yes, if I could please pull off, it's J? J. Yes, J. Could I please pull off J?
The 2024 Older Adult Advisory Board Annual Report?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? That's it. Okay, so the consent agenda consists of everything with the exception of J. Is there a motion?
How about K also?
K?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 All right. The consent agenda now consists of everything with the exception of J and K. Does anyone wish to make a motion to that effect? We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion on the consent agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Item J. Commissioner Chisholm.
Pull up my notes here. Item J is the Older Adult Advisory Board Annual Report. This is actually the first annual report that was submitted by this board. This board was created, I think, around a year ago, and it's tasked with picking up the call to action that the Aging in Place Plan put forth. And so we are a relatively new board, but we are responsible for overseeing the implementation of the Aging in Place Plan. And we have some really amazing board members. They have a lot of expertise in this area, and they're coming with a lot of enthusiasm. There's a couple things that I did want to highlight from this report, if I may. But I can't pull it up. Hold on. Okay. So First off, I wanted to mention that a mailer went out to, I believe, all residents of Royal Oak. I know that we had a discussion at the board, and we thought it was really important for this mailer to not just go out to seniors, but we also recognize that there's a lot of people like me who have older parents who might also be looking for resources for their parents. And so that mailing went out probably about a month and a half ago. And so if you want to dig through your mail basket, if you have one like I do at home, you can find it. And I also wanted to highlight a few other things. One, there's more to the Aging in Place plan than the senior center, but I would like to talk about a few things at the senior center. Part of our annual report put forward some numbers of the different services that the senior center has offered. And the senior center is for people 50 years and older. And between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024, the senior center provided 6,472 rides. We have van services, and so those rides are often to medical appointments for different residents. There were 31 trips to lots of different places that a total of 403 people took advantage of, and I was picking my kid up from school, and a friend came over. She's a grandmother of one of the kids at her school, and she told me how much she loves these trips, and she always looks for when the sign up is coming. There's a newspaper, the Senior Times, which provides stories and resources, and so we have over 1,000 subscribers, and then another 488 received that digital copy. There's also meals at the service center, at the senior center, and there were more than 5,000 meals served. And in this season coming up, we have tax prep help with, I think it's ARP that provides that service. So seniors can get some assistance with filing their taxes. So we're doing a lot of great things. Our director was here, but I think she escaped. She's over there. But I just wanted to highlight those things, and perhaps I can turn it over to Ms. Barkman and Ms. Botello to, I hope I didn't steal too much of your thunder.
You did not. It's always welcome for you guys to talk about the annual report and work the board is doing. So you've noted a lot of things that have been ongoing. One thing that I would just note is this older adults resource guide is the centerfold of the Royal Oak Today magazine, which I believe hit mailboxes because they're out in the lobby. So this is designed to be a tear out sheet that folks can hold on to. It's got a lot of great information about resources that are available at the senior center, as well as in the area, as well as the tax assistance. Tax season is coming, so if folks want to make appointments, that's there for them. So between that, I think the other thing I would add is just to say thank you. We have a lot of really great volunteers at the senior center who spend a lot of time giving a lot of hours, and we just really appreciate all of the work that they do for us. So if you have any other, we'll take any questions if there's questions.
Commissioner Herzog?
I'm interested to know a little bit more about the entertainment, 8 dine-in entertainment programs. What's that all about? Sounds fun.
So we have some impersonators that come in and they entertain while the seniors come and have their congregate meals. And we usually get anywhere from 70 to 100 patrons that will come. A lot of the senior high rises will bus people in as well as us busing them in too. Fun stuff. Elvis, Frank Sinatra. We got Willie Nelson coming next month. Oh, man.
Any other questions? Yes.
Not a question, but a comment. When I was involved in the development of the Aging in Place plan, one of the concerns that we heard or felt was that there were seniors in the community that weren't being touched, that didn't have a smartphone or didn't have a computer or were isolated in some way. And so I pressed very hard for that citywide mailing to help us identify and bring that information to those folks. I think that's essential, especially when you look at, in emergencies, being able to reach people, making sure they get get the safety that they need. And so I was particularly pleased to see us, and that's a cost, and I'm very pleased that we were able to do that.
Very good. Mr. Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for this report. I mean, it's great to see the ton of work that's been done in the short year since this board's really taken shape. So that it's this report is phenomenal. It really lays out a lot. I love how it lays out the goal and objective and how we're meeting that. I think that's important for this body to be able to see that, for the residents to see, because we have a plan in place and this is how we're executing it. I have a question. I'm not sure if it's in the report here, but I know that there's a fitness center that's opening sometime soon. If you want to take a moment and talk about that.
Sure, they're still working on the equipment. We have a lot of it in already, but there's some that we're missing some nuts and bolts that they came to do today, and they're still missing parts. So we're hoping for mid-November, early December to open the doors. But everything's in. If you guys would like to come and see it, stop by. Some of you that came into early vote might have seen it passing through. But yeah, it's going to be great.
And this is a resource that's open, and is it free to everyone, or with the cost?
So we're looking at the cost with the board. We got to pay for preventative maintenance and supplies to clean it, and the cleaning company to clean it. So we're looking at maybe a $3 drop-in fee, or if you sign up for a 6-month or a year membership, you'll get like a 20 to 25% discount on that fee.
So lower than going to a gym in town.
Yes.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
And it's all brand new equipment. It's beautiful. Please stop by and see it.
Wonderful. Excellent. Anybody else? Any other questions? Just thank you to the board. Thank you to the management. Ms. Botello, Ms. Barkman, thank you for your help assisting. And really appreciate all the work you're doing. It's good to see the results and to put it into a report actually that is very well read. We can understand it, and I think the metrics are very interesting. Commissioner Cheatham, thank you for bringing that up, because I think sometimes you have to measure. I mean, it's hard to measure progress sometimes, especially when progress is so personal, and I think it helps to keep track of it and keep our nose to the grindstone and make sure we're doing what we set out to do. So thank you. All right, that brings us to K. Commissioner Colo with the K.
Okay. I just wanted to, I love that we continue public art in Royal Oak and around. I thought staff would take a moment to tell us kind of about this and where it's going and what's happening with it.
Good evening. So yeah, this should be a very cool mural we have going up at 3315 North Campbell. The business is Ohana Wealth Advisory. They offer wealth management and retirement services. And the mural proposal depicts a beautiful sunset with a backlit of a hula dancer, palm tree, bird flying in the sky. What's interesting about it is that it is not a paint mural. It will be a wrap. So that will be a special material that is applied to the building, not a liquid paint. And the Commission for the Arts determined that this piece meets the threshold for not being a sign. Yeah, so it should be really interesting once it goes up. And we presume it should be a good landmark for wayfinding purposes as well. Yeah, thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Macy.
I have a question. I was just going to say, Commissioner Cole gave me a heart attack because at Commission for the Arts, we told the artists, like, you don't need to come. They're not going to pull it off consent agenda. And so when you pulled it off, I was like, what is he going to say about that? So I appreciate that all you wanted to do was hear about this beautiful mural that will be going up. And the wayfinding will be helpful for those who often get lost like me.
Commissioner Cole?
A motion to approve.
A motion by Commissioner Cole. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? All right, with none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We got to go back to J to file and receive the report. Does anyone wish to make a motion on J? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cheatham. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. What's J?
K, never mind.
JK? You're just JKing? Sorry, we just, our city clerk got a another level of certification, so we figured that we could kind of jangle some things up tonight for her so she could figure out how to record it all.
Just to see the minutes.
Thank you. Nice work. I think that mural will be pretty cool. All right. That brings us to item 9, which is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission Buzz Group LLC, doing business as Voodoo Brewing Company. Chief Moore.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The Police Department received a request from Buzz Group LLC to review a new plan of operation at 112 South Main Street. The Class C license is currently in escrow at the former Wahlburgers restaurant location at Woodward Corners. The applicant will be doing business as Voodoo Brewing Company. Voodoo Brewing is a franchise based in Pennsylvania, and this will be the first Michigan location. All the alcohol will be brewed in Pennsylvania and will be shipped to the Royal Oak location. If approved, Voodoo Brewing will operate as a full-service restaurant and bar, and they will serve appetizers and house-made pizzas. The total proposed interior seating will be for 110 patrons, which includes 15 bar seats, and they're also requesting an outdoor service area on the Main Street sidewalk with seating for 12 patrons. The requested hours of operation are Monday to Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., Thursday 11 a.m. to midnight, Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. The applicant is also seeking an entertainment permit to offer occasional live entertainment, and they have already signed an entertainment permit agreement. The applicant does not have any experience in this industry. However, he plans to hire local experienced talent to help him with this launch, and it's also a franchise, so part of the onboarding and training involves bringing in outsiders to help bring in and prepare for this launch. The police department is not opposed to this request. I'm happy to take any questions this evening that you might have, and I will point out that Michael Dimmer and his attorney are here this evening as well if they would like, or if you have questions for them. And the last thing I will point out is this does not require a public hearing.
Questions for Chief Moore? Okay. Does the petitioner want to come up and tell us a little bit more about your plan, intentions, a little pre-free advertising via the, overloaded public airwaves?
Sure, if I can. Good evening. I'm Mike Dimmer. It is a franchise, and admittedly, I do not have a history or a background in the hospitality or food industry, but I am a business owner for 20 plus years, so hopefully some of that will translate over. Sales, marketing, accounting all seem to be truisms in business. And yes, there's the franchise has already about 24, 25 stores open in a dozen plus states. So the concept has been proven, and I think they've got something like 120 on the way. In fact, I won't be the first one. Well, I will be the first one to open in Michigan, hopefully. There is another franchisee in Plymouth following me, probably about 6 months behind. Let's see what else I want to say. It's high-end pub food. The beer is it's won awards internationally, so it won't be your standard, Bud Light and that kind of thing. So that'll be something different and new around here. Any questions? I kind of lost my
Questions for
train of
Mr.
thought
Dimmer? We have Commissioner Herzog.
Why open in Royal Oak?
I'm not a resident, but I used to frequent Royal Oak a lot when I was younger, so I kind of got the lay of the land. I guess I'm married with 6 children, so I hope to spend a lot of time here and not at home. Kind of like a Cheers idea. I'll just kind of be away all the time. But we looked around, and Royal Oak is. I almost hesitate to say it. It's like Birmingham, only with more tattoos, right? It's a great place here. I've been coming here like every week now, just to hit some of the restaurants, and I was like, I've only really been here when I was kind of like at night. And admittedly, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But drunk. So, and it's great. I ran into people I knew, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know, it's like a whole nother world for me out here. So it's a great place. It really is. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Commissioner Hunt?
So I understand you don't have a background in this type of business, but you are a business person. Can you explain how are you going to find employees and make sure that your employees are abiding by the TIPS and TAMS training and that they're doing what is necessary for purposes of following the rules of your establishment?
Well, it's funny because I asked the franchise, I'm like, okay, when do I hire a manager? When do I do all this? And they're like, it's a step-by-step process. You're getting way ahead of yourself here. As we get closer, because I'm probably about 4 months away, there's an off-site training procedure for a couple of weeks, and then they come in and then they help with the hiring and they help with the training and the kitchen and the staff and all that kind of stuff. So I got to admit, I'm not really sure if I know the answer to that question, but I do know that we are hiring local and they've kind of got it down to a science, I think. So that's my suspicion, at least.
So the franchise does assist you in making sure that you're abiding by the different rules and regulations of owning such an establishment?
Oh yeah, of course,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, just a quick question from me. Your favorite food item and your favorite beer?
You mean for Voodoo or
Yeah,
in
for Voodoo,
general?
yeah.
Oh, they got this like spicy chicken sandwich that I kind of like. So I got to admit, I don't really have that much of a sophisticated palate. So I do a lot of cleanup at home. So I'm hoping to maybe even avoid the pizza in general because I eat so much of it. But what's interesting is they've got a sour beer that I thought there's no way I'm going to like this beer. And when I was at Discovery Day, I drank it. I'm like, this is incredible. I can't believe I'd even like this sour beer. And I drank it the rest of the night. So,
Was it a Saison?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. So, but it's tough because I don't know if you guys ever done a reframe in your life. And recently, I kind of was like, I think alcohol is kind of poison. So now I'm like, why am I opening a brew pub when I feel like I shouldn't even be drinking beer at all anymore? So maybe I'll reframe my reframe. But what's that?
Beer is food.
It is, right? Yeah.
It's fermented oatmeal and fermented cornmeal and fermented grains. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah.
Any other?
Are you sure you want to do this?
Did I mention the kids? So.
All right. Well, no other questions?
I need a safety net, right? I need. I'll be able to staff it.
Notoriously good
We'll never be short-staffed. What's that?
I said restaurants are notoriously good safety net.
Oh, well, I think that's all the questions. Mr. Newman, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll chat it up here now. Any discussion, any motions? Commissioner Colo?
Thank you for coming out tonight. It's good to learn about this. I did have some concern about not having any restaurant experience, as Commissioner Hunt said or mentioned, but I do think that franchise establishment like this, they're smaller, they are able to attend to their franchisees better than, let's say, a large corporation, right? I think Voodoo has maybe 20 locations, so they're still able to provide the support needed. My fears are alleviated by that. And I like their beer when I've seen it out. So with that, I'll move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion. No, I just think that you got a great spot there. I've seen the sign go up. Royal Oak is a dynamic community, always in motion, very vibrant. And really encourage you, Mr. Dimmer, to be part of the community, the chamber, the restaurant association, all of that. You'll find everyone kind of has the same mentality in Royal Oak that everybody rises with the tide. So a lot of people here to help you out. And thank you for coming to our community and investing. And like I said, I'm familiar with the franchise model as well and feel comfortable getting you this approval here so you can get going.
I'll let you know when our softball tryouts are then.
Oh, you've heard. Just kidding. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good luck. All right, this brings us to item 10, Lawson Park, parking on East Parent Avenue. We have Mr. Filipski and Ms. Donahue presenting to us. We'll hand it over to you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Thanks for having us tonight. As you know, special assessment paving of East Parent Avenue from Longfellow to the dead end is planned now for 2025. As part of this project, which is kind of shown here up on the screen, this is a narrower road than typical, 21 feet wide. And so we only have room for on-street parking on one side of the street, not on both sides. So what we would end up with if we just move forward kind of as planned would be a 21-foot wide road. We have a couple driveway approaches here for the residences, a turnaround on the south side of the road with some bollards. There are 2 handicap parking spaces existing right there, right now, that are just asphalt parking pad that we would leave in place. And then there would be room for these other 2 spots on street. So pretty limited parking on the block if we move forward with this concept. A few neighbors had requested that the city consider a pull-off parking area on the south side of East Parent Avenue to help relieve some parking congestion in the neighborhood overall, and also congestion on Parent Avenue. And so we had drafted another exhibit, which I believe you've seen a few months ago here, which would remove that handicap asphalt parking pad and then replace it with this pull-off parking area, which would allow for 10 new spaces, and we would make 2 of them accessible near the access to the park there. This pull-off parking concept was initially presented to the Parks and Rec Board back in June, and we also discussed this preliminary layout at our June 10th commission meeting as part of the traffic committee item for Parent Avenue. The commission had asked that we bring this back to you for a more formal discussion and decision on this topic. When we brought to the Parks and Rec Board, they didn't object to this installation, but they did want to make sure we had some community outreach. So we did send letters to the neighborhood letting them know that this would be on the agenda tonight. And then they also said, this is great, but we don't have a funding source, so if you can find the money, we're okay with it, basically. Back in June, we had hoped that there would be some leftover community development block grant funds or CDBG funds that could be applied to this project for next fiscal year. As some of you know, the CDBG map has been updated, and so this neighborhood is no longer within that low to moderate income census tract within Royal Oak. And so this area is no longer eligible for that funding, so unfortunately we can't use it as we were hoping. This work was not included in our capital improvement plan. We do not have assigned funding for it. So in order to build this pull-off parking area along with the road job in 2025, we would need to make a cut somewhere else in our budget. We don't recommend eliminating any of our planned projects, but we did provide a list of potential options there if that is something the commission wanted to consider. So those are listed in the commission letter. I will know that this parking pad is something we could construct at a later date if we wanted to without significantly affecting the work that we're doing on the road. So we would simply horizontal saw cut that existing or the new curb on the south side of the road and then build up against it. That's exactly what we did at Whittier Park, and it worked pretty darn well over there. Mr. Filipski and I have discussed this quite a bit. Our recommendation is at this time to deny the request because we do not have funding available. But of course, we're here and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Commissioner Herzog.
Thank you so much. I live in the south end of Royal Oak, and I come to this park often, usually taking Parent to Irving, and I am also very frightening. It's very congested in the summer, getting through this whole area and finding a place to park. So I feel the neighborhood's pain in that. What is the process if we wanted to do this further down when we do have available funding?
You want to take that?
That would be programmed into a future year's capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Commissioner Macy.
Yeah, I don't like how you lined up the things I would have to trade out for this. I like when you just magically find the money and I don't have to think about it. So at the Parks and Rec, I can't remember if I've said this here already, so I apologize if I said this last time, but The discussion we had is that, yes, as has been discussed by the people who live down there, this parking is desperately needed for this park. This park is now a gem in our city, and it attracts people, and there's lots of different like activations that are happening in the park all the time. Like it's got a pavilion, and it's got the big structure, and it's got the ball field, it's got the basketball, it's got like a lot of stuff going on there. So I was a little salty at Parks and Rec because when we laid out this beautiful park design all those years ago, we did a lot of public input. And I know the one of them said, I wasn't here, it wasn't me. But at the time, the residents were saying, we don't want parking there. Please leave our, unpaved thing the way it is. We like our kids walk across the street there. We don't want parking. And so I was a little salty because we had the money for the parking when we designed the park, and then we didn't put it in because the residents didn't want it. So we spent $1 million on this park, but none of it was on parking. But that said, we're not trying to punish our residents here. Like the park exists and needs parking. So I'm, curious to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say. I would love to put the parking there. I don't want to give up any of these projects. So darn the city engineer for making me have to think about my choices. But I'm curious to hear what others have to say. Like it definitely is needed there, and yet the money doesn't exist.
So I have a question, Ms. Donahue. So you mentioned that the paving is going to happen in 2025, right? And you could tee it up for a later date if we were to find the money, let's say in 2026 or something like that, to sort of design it with the idea that we would actually do the improvements later with a funding source. Is that what I heard you say?
That's certainly possible. I don't know that I would leave a dropped curb there without knowing for sure that we were going to build a pull-off parking pad. I would rather build it assuming we don't know what's happening, because horizontal saw cutting curb is pretty cheap and pretty easy to do. So if we weren't totally sure that was going to happen as a phase 2 type thing, I would not recommend postponing the paving of Parent for 2026, which I don't think that's what you're saying, but only because prices will go up, so the cost to the residents will go up as well. So I do want to keep that in 2025, but we could add this pad at a future date, yes.
And then the other question I have, and I know I've asked it before, and I know I'm speaking to a very highly qualified engineer in the DPS chief that has to deal with the outcome of such recommendations, but I'll always ask the question, the likelihood of people using this lot in the winter is a little bit far less than in the rest of the seasons. Is there a way or a reason why we wouldn't consider, a gravel pad there as part of this for parking?
It's certainly an option. We try to avoid gravel. In fact, it's in our ordinance that people are not allowed to put stones and gravel in the right of way because it gets onto sidewalks, or cars can kick it up and spit rocks at people. It's not very common, I don't think, but you can roll your ankle if it spills over onto the sidewalk. This is pretty popular area in terms of people walking around the park and accessing it, so that might make me a little bit more hesitant to do that. And I think it's also more maintenance for Parks and Rec to have to deal with.
Reduce the cost, I wouldn't think too much.
It probably would be pretty
think so?
I mean, the biggest cost here is the concrete, right?
Right.
And so if all I'm doing is the 6-inch stone, which I'm doing anyways, under the concrete, it would reduce the cost significantly.
Okay. Commissioner Cheatham and then Commissioner Colo.
I have a question just off of that. Well, two questions. So one question off of that. So if I do wonder about ADA compliance with gravel, if that would impact the accessibility because the 2 handicap parking spots are in that location. So I would have concerns about that solution for that reason. I also take my child to this park. It is amazing. I mean, it's so tall. It's real. The play structure there is really fun. We often bike there because we live about a mile away. But when I do drive, without fail, I forget that there's not parking there, and I pull into that spot. I pull down the dirt path, and then I remember, it's largely the handicap parking, and I turn around, and it always feels clunky to me every time this happens. And also the Longfellow, I think I usually end up parking on Longfellow. It's not a very wide street, so it just always feels a little funny. So I think having parking there is a good idea. To Commissioner Macy's saltiness and frustration, I totally understand that, but I also think that we want to live in a world where we can change our minds with new information, and I think that the lived experience of having the park in the neighborhood changed folks' mind, and I can understand that. The last thing I just wanted to say was I do wonder if there's a possibility for grants for something like this, and maybe not under like the road side of things, but from the park side of things. I wonder if this is something we could have our grants manager looking for options to see if there might be some funding so even if we're planning it for 2026, that might be able to move it forward a little bit sooner, because I know that she likes to know what departments are thinking about down the road so she could look for options down the road. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Commissioner Colo, then Commissioner Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, to Commissioner Macy's point, I was a vocal person saying we shouldn't put parking there. I live in this neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. And the parking at the time just wasn't wanted. I think it was 160-some thousand. And at the time, we thought I could put that into awesome things like the shelter that we ended up building. So I know the neighbor didn't want it. I do see it is an extremely busy park. I mean, it's extremely successful. We did a phenomenal job designing it and building it, and people come to it all the time. So which is what you want with a park. You want people to be at the parks. This is why we build these phenomenal structures, and we're lucky that we have 50-some of them in the city. I do love the idea of adding this parking. One comment we did here tonight was it's difficult to navigate around this neighborhood, and it is. It's a trap on many different levels. If you look at the map of Lawson Park, there's dead ends at the north end of it and the south end of it. If you want to go around Lawson Park, it is a 3/4 of a mile jaunt if you're on the wrong side of the road, because you have to go up over to Lincoln and back down again. It's not easy to navigate the neighborhood because of this. A couple months ago, we had complaints about people not stopping at Parent and Irving also. That's where the road comes to, it looks like it might be a curve, but it is really stops on either side. And that's because the road is actually designed with a curve in it to accommodate the berm. So I guess I'm wondering now, while adding this parking, if it's time to look at potentially taking out those two dead ends at the north and south end of this park to, once again, just increase the drivability and safety around this park. That will add more parking for people because we will have, that berm space is completely not used. The south end, which is Dondero, is a portion of the park that no one thinks to park at. It's a gravel road at the moment. People don't think to even go down there, that you can park down there. We're losing a ton of potential parking spots. And then once again, just how to navigate around this neighborhood becomes extremely difficult. So I would think that as we're talking about this tonight, without making a decision, this is something to kick to our committees, our parking committee, about just potentially looking at what it could look like to open up these berms and how that could increase the parking and traffic throughout the community.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As Commissioner Macy pointed out, there are 5 other projects that are in the queue for funding ahead of this, and I would hate to see us dash the hopes of the people who wanted those projects done and have been waiting potentially for years to get their projects done in order for us to do this parking project. And so I support the staff recommendation that we delay this. I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Colo on the subject of at least getting rid of the berm on the west end of Parent here. If we were to move forward with the parking spaces here, it seems like those would be in such high demand that it would be a mess, a heavily trafficked, people pulling in, pulling out, backing in, backing out, kids, strollers, that it would be a real burden towards the homeowners that are adjacent to that. Whereas if you were to open Parent up to whatever is next street, Irving, I think, if you were to open it up, you would lessen the, the need for people to back in and back out and drive in, go, oh shoot, there aren't any parking spaces, turn around and go back out again. I just think that's a real mess. And just going down there and driving around and looking at things, it's such a busy park, and we've choked off transit or around the park in order for people to find parking spaces because of the 2 blocked off streets. Well, as I say, for now, I agree with the staff's recommendation that we not install this parking. I think if we were to move forward with it, we would want to look very hard into removing those berms.
Commissioner Hunt?
I have to concur with Commissioner Douglas. We have 5 projects here. I think it's 5 projects that have already been in the works, that have already been researched and funds allocated to it. I feel like it would be a disappointment to deviate away from those for this particular project. But in the with regards to what Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Colo just spoke of, there is not funding for this particular project. If we're looking at removing berms for research or information gathering purposes, is there a cost associated with that, or is it just kicked to the parking committee to determine what that would look like for removing those berms as it relates to finance or funding and costs?
So it gets a little bit messy. We have a couple things in play here. So we did do a berm study of all the berms in the south end by 2017 or 2018, something like that. That traffic study had indicated these berms are not required to help with congestion in the neighborhood and cut through traffic, that they could all be removed. We had very, very strong opposition from the neighborhood that said, do not touch these berms. And that's kind of the way that the city went with it. So it's something, if we wanted to consider, I would absolutely get public feedback on that before making that decision. The other thing at play here is, we have a special assessment district. It's been decided, it's designed, we're moving forward with that. We can always stop it, right? You have the power to do that. But if we wanted to pave all the way through to Irving, that significantly changes the one property's assessment. And we would have to go through that special assessment process again, which is doable, but just something else to consider if we want to move forward in that direction.
So I'll just add that, one, I don't really feel like we should mess with the berms at this moment. We shouldn't let the tail wag the dog. I've been clear on the record that I think the status quo is fine at the moment. I don't have the desire to remove the berms on the south side of town. But what I do have is a question on CIP number 2024-42, the park drainage for 2025. Where is that? What park is that affecting?
So with Nikki on board now, that's one of the things she's tasked with. The reason I included that project on here is because this first year, that $80,000 that was allocated for that wouldn't get very far in addressing all of our drainage problems. And so the first portion of that money we'd like to spend on identifying several of the worst parks, the ones that the user experiences, particularly with sports and athletics, make it difficult for parents during certain times of year, and then get a recommendation from an engineering consultant on how best to resolve those issues at each individual park. We get a lot of snake oil salesmen that will tell us this product will do it and that will, and there's a lot of different ways to address that, some more expensive than others, and all of them unique to their particular location, because it's not even just about drainage, it's often about soils and things like that. So in terms of impact for the community immediately, that's why I included that on there, because moving forward with this year, it'll be a report that we'll have on our shelf that we'll be able to take something out to bid in a future year to actually implement the project on site.
Okay, so it's for professional fees to determine which parks are mostly that have the most negative impact with drainage, and then also for engineering opinions on how to best or most cost effectively address those drainage issues.
That's correct.
I mean, I can tell you which parks firsthand. Okay. Do we know that we're going to spend that this year, or is there a risk that that might get pushed out into next year?
We have not awarded that to a consultant yet. The intention was, but it has not been awarded.
Okay, because my question is what would be, what would be sad is if this is in the budget, but, we have a new parks person, maybe there's other priorities, things that, the person's getting caught up and dealing with a myriad of priorities and doesn't get to this within the parks priority. And then we end up not using this funding when we could have used it to have an immediate impact on parking by putting 10 spots in, which would affect, positively the neighbors. They came out and said this would affect them in a positive way, but it would also, for 10 people parking 150 days a year, 1,500 people, probably the same people in some cases, but, getting them an immediate impact in 2025 because we know we're doing the road, right? And we would put the parking in and there'd be an immediate, there's no guesswork. We would be to schedule. So, Mr. Filipski, what is your thought on, not crystal ball, but is this project 2024-42 at risk for the right reasons, where maybe that funding will not be spent because of the fact that we do have somebody new and it's going to take some time for her to get her,
If we
bearing straight.
don't defer it and when we pursue it this year, the impact on staff is relatively limited because most of the heavy lifting will be done by the consultants for that. So I'm not 100% concerned about the staff capability of doing that. If that answers your question.
Kind of.
Sort of.
Kind of. Commissioner Macy.
All right, now I'm gonna defend poor Aaron here. Park drainage was the #1 thing that came out of the people's concerns at the Parks Master Plan. Like, this is the thing that people want to see for all of our 50 parks. We know we've got a lot of drainage issues at our parks. If we don't get it started now, and this is just the consulting, this isn't even doing the work, we're pushing all of that back a whole nother year. Like, I would much prefer to do any of these other 4 projects, which, granted are, like, no one wants to cut axe any of these, but the park drainage is the biggest park's priority. And so cutting that because we want to put parking at this park immediately does not make sense to me.
Well, I wasn't suggesting cutting it, but my question is if this allocation doesn't get spent this year, then that would be a miss. And so what I'm trying to understand is, yes, it's a priority, but if we're not getting to it to this year, I'd like to know, and that's the sense I'm trying to get from Mr. Filipski. If he's saying we're definitely doing this, we're definitely going to hire a consultant for $80,000 and take care of the priority, then to me that's, I agree with you. But if hey, we got a lot of stuff going on, we might not spend that money because we're, falling behind in other things, then I don't, you know what I mean? We get to next year, we miss this opportunity while we're paving Parent to have a funding source that we can float until next year's budget.
I know, but you're really putting them on the spot to be like,
no,
hey, you better spend this $80,000 or, like, I'm going to be mad. So it just
No, I didn't say I was going to be mad. I'm just saying I want to get an idea.
Mayor. I mean, it felt unfair. It felt unfair.
Mr. Filipski, does it feel unfair when I ask what your intentions are with your job? No, I'm kidding.
That's fair.
No.
That's fair when he does that.
So, as I see it, yes, we have every intention of being able to complete that this year without problem, even though that there's a lot of park-related things going on. I think it's feasible. On the other hand, here again, this is why this was put on the list. We've had park drainage problems since day one, since decades ago. So not to say that that makes it right to hold off on that study, but it really wouldn't change the current situation meaningfully.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's feasible that you'll spend this $80,000 on the consultant to deal with park drainage, but it's not certain.
Correct. I mean, it's listed, it's low-hanging fruit as far as our projects go. So yes, I foresee it with my crystal ball being done this year.
Okay, that's the answer I'm looking for. That's not being mean, that's being jurisprudent about how we spend our money. Thank you, Mr. Filipski. All right, Commissioner Herzog.
I just wanted to support what some of my fellow commissioners said about not picking and choosing after that. What projects, I think those that have been set, and we should move forward with that. I would like to see parking at this park. And I think what Commissioner Douglas said about the 10 and coming in and out might be kind of funky. So I'd be also very interested in what that looks like if parent is completely opened up. We know that that curve might be a safety issue. I feel unsafe driving it, but maybe no one else. I don't know. And I would be really interested in seeing what Irving opening up and making that a four-way stop, how that makes people more aware that they're coming into a very congested park area where there are kids playing, and there's a basketball hoop right there where balls are going into the street. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I hear a lot of these, discussions about these berms right now, too. And I think one thing that's important, I know that back in 2018, when the study was presented, it was strong opposition from the neighborhood. In fact, there's a poll, a survey, I think 2,000 people completed it, and half didn't want to open any berms. I think this neighborhood has changed substantially since 2017. A lot of new condos, a lot of new neighbors now live in the neighborhood that didn't live there before because we've changed the landscape quite literally. The Harrison development went up. There's a lot of condos, a lot of old industrial has been sold off and is transformed into new residential. So this is a neighborhood that is filled with people now, not trucks, and that's why these berms were established originally, because there's trucks going in and out. I believe where one of our people lived tonight used to be a lumber mill that was there in the 80s, and just west of the park, the townhomes that are there are because that's where they were making the concrete for 696 when it was under construction. So there's trucks coming in and out of the neighborhood constantly. So I do think that at least exploring this, not to say that this will happen, but exploring it and having a conversation with the public about why this might be a good idea, especially with how active and busy this park is once again, just impossible to get around the park. If you're on Irving, you're going very far around the park to get in or out of the community. So this is, I think, just a conversation to have, and I'm confident that residents have seen that this has been a very busy, awesome park, and they want better options just to get around their own neighborhood.
Commissioner Douglas.
And building on that, I would wager that if you ask people in neighborhoods around Royal Oak if they would like their streets closed off and berms with dead ends so that there wouldn't be traffic on their street, they would be, everybody on that street and in that neighborhood would be uniformly in favor of that change. And yet we are, one of the things that makes us, Royal Oak, so desirable is the street grid, the ability to disperse traffic throughout neighborhoods and for people to be able to get where they're going from their home to their school, to a store. And so while yes, we probably most assuredly would hear from people who live in this area objecting to the removal of berms, we are here to serve the city as a whole. And I would ask that should this come up, and it's not happening today, but that we bear that in mind.
Commissioner Colo?
Okay, I'm going to make a stab at a motion here. I'm going to move approval of the denial today, but to construct the road in a way that this can come back for reallocation of funds in the next available year to build the parking spaces. And then that the engineering department conducts a study and takes it to traffic committee on potentially opening up berms on Irving, Parrott, and Ondero.
A motion by Commissioner Colo, second by Douglas. Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Macy.
I was just going to ask Engineer Donahue what we had to take off her agenda to add this to her agenda. Does she have a list of the things that we have to do? Do you have the time to do this traffic? Is this something we can add to you to say we might want you to look at how the street goes through?
I mean, sure.
This is, there's no timeline on it, right?
There's no
Oh,
timeline.
I thought you said next year.
So it's not something that's going to come to you next month, right? This will take some time. We'll probably get a consultant to do a traffic study. I do want to be cognizant that 696 construction is coming up, so if we want counts and stuff, we should be doing that much sooner than later. So, I'll put it in our game plan for traffic committee, but it may be something we hear 6 months from now, for example.
Okay.
And Commissioner Macy, Commissioner Mayor, if I may, I think the next year portion was to look at funding sources for the parking in the next available year.
Yeah.
So the parking would happen in '26,
Okay.
which would not take any of those 5 projects that were listed off the table.
Okay. I guess I was confused because I thought the parking was related to the traffic change. I thought we would do those together.
I will do whatever the engineer says.
I only sort of understand the motion.
So I think what we would do is design the road in such a way that if it ever went out to Irving, that we got the elevations right so that we didn't have to redo the road and create a new high point or a new low point, for example. So we can take that into account when doing design right now. We can study the berms at a future date. One thing I did want to clarify, you want us to find a way to put this in 2026, or you want us to program it in a future year?
The parking lot in 26.
2026, okay.
That's the next available year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, while I support putting the parking lot here, and it sounds, notwithstanding the ability to secure grant money and probably no desire of this commission to reallocate any funding to do the parking lot out of this year's budget, that 2026 would be fine for me. And hearing from the city engineer that it's some curb cuts, and if you know that we're going to go down that route, potentially you can kind of set up the project accordingly. I do have a problem with the berms. I just don't see any. I mean, I hear the logic, I hear the reason, but I don't see any people clamoring to get the berms removed. And I'm directly impacted by those berms. I get lots of people driving through my street and everything like that because of the berms. So I can't support the motion because of the second part, but I do support the first part. So if this one fails, I would definitely support a motion to look at the parking, if we can't do it this year, for 2026. Commissioner Macy?
Sorry, I'm sort of confused, so I'm just trying to clarify here. So the second part of the motion doesn't require us to get rid of the berm, right? Right?
Correct.
Okay.
No, but it's taking engineering resources and time to study it and evaluate it. And if I don't support it at all, then why would I support even spending 30 minutes, 300 hours, whatever it is, of engineering time to move forward? That's my logic. Commissioner Douglas?
So you may not have heard clamoring, but you might have heard my profanity the times that I've been driving in this area, trying to get to a destination and running up against a dead end and not knowing how to get around a block to get to the place that I'm going. The clamoring is not going to be a widely public thing, but the level of frustration for people trying to access this area is, at least on this side, substantial.
For the record, Commissioner Douglas does not like corn mazes.
She rightfully hates maze.
I guess to your point, I don't think our road design should be like a corn maze, and so let's study it to see if it makes more sense to make it safer and a four-way stop and have more parking and parking north on Irving. Whatever it is.
All right, anybody else? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. A lone no vote. And my no vote is not because I don't want the parking there. It's because of the berm issue that was tied to the motion. I don't, see? This is what they do. This is a tactic. Washington's coming to the city of Royal Oak. He voted down a bill. It's like, no, there's something in that bill I didn't really like. All right. All right, that brings us to item 11, which is consideration of ordinance to conditionally rezone 1200 Knowles Street to general industrial, second reading. We hashed this out last time. It's here for second reading because it wasn't a unanimous vote. I suspect there's not a lot of questions or information. Anything? Okay. Is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, I'll move to approve the conditional rezoning on second reading.
A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion? Commissioner Colo?
I just find it extremely humorous. We spent the last topic talking about how this neighborhood had turned into a residential area with people, families, and people walking around, and this is rezoning to industrial.
All right. Call for the vote. Oh, Mr. Grochowski.
Thank you.
You got the motion.
Does that include adoption of the associated conditional zoning agreement if approved?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion passes. All right. That brings us to item 12, approval of employment agreement for our newly nominated city manager, Mr. Grochowski.
Thank you. After unanimous nomination, I reached out to Mr. Gacho, and he accepted immediately. We began work on the employment agreement. It is there for your consideration. I've laid out the highlights in the letter to the commission. I will indicate that for some odd reason, I've been living in November all the month of October, as you know from a previous communication with the commission. So I will have to strike November and add October as the operative month that this goes in effect. Joseph has indicated his agreement to this proposed employment agreement by having signed it electronically, as well as I have signed as to form. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? No? I'll just say, I think this reflects sort of our initial conversations we had during the onset of our recruitment, where we would probably end up and likely be to find a quality candidate to fill the position. I like to table talk too. So Commissioner Douglas?
I'll move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Herzog. All right, discussion on this item?
That includes the change of the date
With
to
the correction of the date.
With the correction of the date. Okay, perfect. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Now, Mr. Grochowski, Mr. Gaucho has to, we ink it and it's good? And we got about 60 days?
So you approved it tonight. You'll sign it tonight,
Yep.
and it's effective tonight. His first day of employment will be January 6th, given how the holidays fall in the middle of the week,
Yep.
Christmas and New Year's. However, he does have a 60-day notice provision in his current contract, so being it's October 28th, his 60 days would be over December 28th, so it's only fair to give him a week or so to get used to it. We are finding opportunities for him when he has the availability to engage the city in certain aspects. He attended a meeting, a very important meeting the other day, was critical to that meeting. So when we can make room and get him acclimated and accustomed to certain operations ahead of time, we're working on that, including the budget. That's probably a high-level thing that needs to have discussions right away.
So there's a fair and equitable plan to get him up to speed so he can hit the ground
Correct,
running.
and he is anxious to get started and anxious to get involved even prior to January 6th, so he's excited about those opportunities.
Great, excellent. All right.
So should we just say, hey, Mr. Gottschall, look forward to having you on board?
And I know he would be here tonight, but they have a council meeting in Ferndale tonight, so he was obligated to be there.
Makes sense.
And it is how to say his last name, right? We're all sure on this one.
Gotcha.
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 Gacho.
Gat or got?
Got.
Thank you.
I'm still working on yours.
Okay. All right, awkward. Okay.
That's the American pronunciation.
All right, so we're going to go with the last item tonight, which is the, oh, we did vote.
We did?
You did. You voted.
Oh, we did, you're right.
Yeah. We can vote again. Yeah. So this brings us to our last item, which is council's recommendation from closed session. Commissioner Macy?
I move that we accept council's recommendation in closed session and authorize the mayor to act on behalf of the city.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion on the motion. Oh,
I
Mr.
think the
Kachowski.
proposed agreement has the mayor and city clerk to authorize on behalf, please.
I move approval of accepting the recommendation of council as presented in closed session, authorize the mayor and the city clerk to act on behalf of the city commission.
Thank you.
All right. And I saw. Oh, man.
Can't live with them, can't live with them.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. All right, that brings us to our last topic, adjournment. Commissioner Herzog.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, that's a very high, energetic, enthusiastic motion to adjourn. Is there a second that can top that?
Second.
Second, all right. Commissioner Douglason with a strong second. Any discussion on this motion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. The ayes have it. We're adjourned.